Okay guys, let's create some margins and bleed lines. First off, let's ensure that our document is 8.5 by 11 and we are working in inches all around. So go to your document properties, file, document properties, or you can use this icon right here. Make sure that your document is 8.5 by 11 and in inches. Make sure that your display units are in inches. This means that your rulers here and here are in inches. Okay, so we are going to click and drag out from our rulers to create our guides. Okay, so simply go to the edge of your ruler, click and drag out. Okay, click and drag out. Now if you find that you are clicking and it's not happening, you just need to position it just right. Okay, so just keep trying. Simply click and drag out. And I realize sometimes on your first go, if you have no margins in on your first go, it might give you a bit of an issue. Like you saw it did to me just now. It didn't come right away. I had to do it again, but must be something with the settings. But as you can see now, I'm just clicking and dragging, clicking and dragging. Now take a look at the cursor. Make sure that you have the correct cursor. You want your cursor to look like this, not this. Okay, see what this does? That's not what you want. You want it to look like the selection tool. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete all these guides, and we're going to click and drag out from the left to create our first margin. Okay, right now the margin is blue. When you hover over and you're able to select it, it'll turn red and you will see that little hand instead of the selection tool. So when you see that hand and your guide is red, double click. Okay, this is a guide from your x-axis, guys, hence the reason, see this here, your x-axis, hence the reason it is highlighted. This is the one you want to type into. This is the area, in fact, that you want to type into, the area that is highlighted. And we are going to create 0.5 margins. Our first guide, 0.5. Okay, 0.5. We can lock the guide here, but I'll also show you other places that you can do that. As you know, there are multiple places that you could do a single thing in Inkscape. Okay, so let's go ahead and say okay. This is our 0.5 margin. Click and drag. I'm going to double click. Okay, and I need this margin to be 8 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and type in 8 and say okay. I'm going to do our horizontal margins on the y-axis. Click and drag. See it changed? Now it's at the y-axis. This is the area highlighted. This is the one that you want to change, and we want it to be 0.5. 0.5. Say okay. Click and drag. Double click. I need this margin to be 10.5. 10.5. These are our margins, guys. We've completed our margins. Let's go ahead and do our bleed lines. So I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Zoom out a little bit, because our bleed lines are going to be on the outside of the document. Same process, click and drag, double click. We want this margin to be at negative 0.25. Negative 0.25. Say okay. Right? Next one. We want this bleed line to be at 8.75, and again we are going to adjust the area that is already highlighted. 8.75. We are adding 0.25 to each side of the document. Our document is 8.5. If we add 0.25 to that, it'll make it 8.75. Okay, let's go to the top, click and drag. Double click. We want this to be x-axis, x-axis, negative 0.25. Say OK. Here we go. Click and drag again one final time. Double click. And we need this one to be 11.25. Now notice guys, I dragged my guide down to the area where I want it to be, towards the bottom. And it's 11.27. So I'm just going to change that to 11.25 for accuracy. But if you drag the guide down, you could use these numbers here as some sort of reference to tell you that you're in the right place. Okay, so 11.25. And here we have our margins and our bleed lines completed. Okay, we can use this padlock in the upper left hand corner here to lock our guides. Okay, so when we double clicked on the guide, we could lock each one individually, or we can lock all of them using this padlock over here. Notice an unlocked guide will have a small dot on it. See that? When I click my padlock, that dot turns to an X. Okay? All the dots on the margins and the bleed lines are locked. So now they've all turned to X's. Alright, there is one more place. Document properties, guides. Lock all guides is checked. All our guides are locked. If we uncheck it, do you see those dots? Yes, all our guides are now unlocked. We can go ahead and lock them now. I suggest you lock your guides so they won't shift on you accidentally. If you're trying to shift something on the page, that you won't accidentally shift any of the guides. You can also hide the guides. While you're designing, you will want to see a clean look, you know, to see what your artwork looks like. You can hide the guides and you can show the guides. And of course, if you're not happy with what you've done in terms of the guides, you can delete all of them right here. Okay, so I hope this video will be helpful to you guys. Again, take a look at the calculations that you will need for the bleed lines and the margins, and have a good one.